to talk a little bit about the James and Elena story. So, this was a story that was texted to Lori through the course of a day in July 2019, shortly after Charles was murdered. And so it was like a story that he was writing through the course of a bunch of text messages, not emails, in case you're curious. But and of course, we've laughed about it for years because it is really something else. But basically, Chad just kind of started writing her a little love story, and she'd send little responses back. And the entire seventh grade, do you like me? Check yes or no in the box kind of story unfolded, because if you've read any of Chad's books, you know that his writing skills are actually pretty low. And I've thought about this a lot because Tammy was his editor apparently. And I just always wonder, like, did Tammy like pity Chad? Like, he's writing these dumbass books and they're very juvenile and she has to edit them. And I've always wondered if she was like really being generous with the idea that he was a good writer. Okay, I think our special guest is ready to join. So I am going to welcome to the show Fabio Toadface, Chad's romance novel, Alter Ego.
Hello. Hello.
That's a resting toad face right there.
Yes, it is. Do you like my Fabio hair?
I like your Fabio hair. I do. I feel like that mask is it'll be fine. It's probably fine. Uh, Tammy did not edit this one for sure, but I would like to turn the time over to Fabio McToadface for a dramatic reading of the James and Elena story.
Friday morning, October 26th, driving south on the freeway, a voice said, "You will meet an extraordinary woman today who will change your life forever." It is actually a very detailed story that began long ago in another world, and I will cover that part as I go along and the characters figure things out. But on the morning of October 26th, James arrived in St. George, still a bit baffled by the message he had received. He unloaded his books and set up his table, then joined the organizers for dinner in the main room. Sorry, Fabio is very blind. At this
As
time,
toads are wont to be. Yeah.
yeah, at this time, their spirits could not be restrained. Am I on the right page? I guess so. Sorry. At this time, their spirits could not be restrained any longer, and a long awaited make-out session took place in that lobby. This was manifest in the mortal world to James and Elena through the scientific phenomenon known as loin fire. As they talked, James had a burning desire to make love to her, but he wasn't sure she felt the same way. But they
Not
could
the
not
loin fire.
but they could not stay away from each other. One time, she was sitting in a couch near his table, and he took a seat on a chair about 5 feet from her. She began to squirm and covered her body with her hands. She asked him, "What are you doing?" He wasn't aware of what she meant. All he knew was that if Bruce Porter hadn't been giving them an evil eye, a child would have been conceived on that couch. Come on.
Damn you, Bruce Porter!
The erotic tension continued throughout the afternoon. James could only think of her. His desire for her was indescribable. Thankfully, she had worn 16 layers of clothing to survive the 80-degree weather, so he was not fully aware that she truly had the body of a goddess. Her dimensions were exactly what he had always fantasized about. But that revelation would have to wait a month.
Bum
As
bum
the
bum.
night concluded, James needed to take his empty boxes to his car. With Elena's help, he had sold more books at a show than he ever had before. She helped him carry the boxes to the car, and then he could not resist the desire to hug her. He made an awkward attempt that was too brief because their friends were bringing more boxes. In that short embrace, though, he knew he had found the woman he had searched for his entire life. It was made crystal clear to him that they had been married before and would be again. He once again had to fight off a powerful urge to kiss her and, and somehow disguise the massive erection he was experiencing. Ew. They returned to the building. He helped carry tables to the second floor while she sat on the couch.
Hard
They
to do
couldn't
with
take their
that
eyes off each
massive
other.
erection.
He was already madly in love. Her group of friends finally had to leave. He was devastated, un- unused how he would ever contact her again. Then her spirit took over and asked him, "Can I get your cell phone number in case I have some questions?" They exchanged numbers, and then they gave each other a hug goodbye. It was the most wonderful, electric, delicious hug he had ever felt. Then he watched her walk away, knowing she was truly going to change his life forever. End of chapter 1. I think I read this out of order, but I'm still going to read this. One powerful moment happened earlier that day when Elena was listening to another speaker while James stayed at the table. Yeah, it was backwards. Sorry. But he thought he heard Elena say, "Come stand behind me." He went into the room and saw her standing against the wall. He moved behind her and they discreetly touched. After a few minutes, he checked his phone and said she had texted him that very sentence. At the stone, he heard her voice. It was a wonderful testament that they were already communicating it with each other on a higher level. They helped clean up the conference, and Elena graciously allowed James to stay in a spare bedroom at her home that night. They visited with other friends until after midnight. Then all went to bed. James anxiously hoped Elena would join him in the spare room. It took a while for everyone to settle into their beds, but once the house quieted down, James opened his door slightly and saw the wondrous sight of Elena approaching the room. They locked the door behind her and quickly got under the covers. He was wearing his athletic shorts, and she was wearing tight, thin leggings and a loose top.
Oh, dear God. This is going to dry humping, isn't it? Oh,
They clung to each other and kissed desperately, hungrily. James placed his hands under her top and caressed her splendid breasts.
No.
She moaned happily and wrapped her legs around his waist. Only two things, layers of material, separated their loins, and they could feel each other's most intimate body parts in detail.
So the
The
friction that started
intensity,
the loin fire then. Okay.
mm, the intensity and spiritual vibration exceeded anything either one of them had ever felt before. They knew their spirits were actually intimately joined together, and it felt like they had left the celestial world.
The celestial world.
Elena soon got on top of James, and the rhythmic ecstasy continued for several more minutes. Toward the end, they both removed their tops, and they pressed their bodies together, skin to skin. They fit together perfectly, and their kisses were deep and frenzied. Their desire for each other was beyond compare. As this reunion in the spare room came to a conclusion, Raphael, who the hell's Raphael, knew Elena was his perfect match. They longed to stay entwined together, but it would be best to separate and get some rest. By 6 a.m., James couldn't stand to be away from her any longer. He slipped into her bedroom and stood at her bedside. He was She was unbelievably gorgeous, and he greatly desired to join her in the bed and continue the previous night's activities. But there were other guests in the house who weren't yet aware of their sizzling love for each other. So he, ge- so he gently touched her shoulder to awaken her. Her eyes opened. Then she reached up and grabbed his arms to pull him into the bed. He smiled, realizing she wasn't fully awake and had likely been dreaming of him. The end.
What?
Well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
You took one for the team, and we all really appreciate